The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the massive crystal halls of Zentara Prime, where representatives from 47 species gathered under the shimmering dome that had witnessed countless decisions shaping the galaxy. Today's agenda carried only one item, but it would echo through history for generations to come. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically as holographic evidence floated around him. The images showed human settlements expanding across contested worlds, human ships ignoring established trade routes, and human colonies that had sprouted like weeds across systems the Council had designated as protected zones. Esteemed colleagues, Kethvar's translator rendered his clicks and whistles into the common tongue. We face an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. The species known as humanity has repeatedly violated the stellar accords, ignored our warnings, and demonstrated a complete disregard for established cosmic order. In the human delegations section, Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat rigid in her chair, her jaw clenched as she watched decades of diplomatic work crumble around her. Beside her, General Marcus Chen studied the faces of the alien representatives, reading the writing on the wall in their hostile expressions and closed body language. The Altarian delegate, a crystalline being whose thoughts manifested as shifting colors across its translucent surface, pulsed an angry red. The humans consume resources at an alarming rate. Their expansion threatens the delicate balance we have maintained for millennia. They are like a virus, spreading through our galaxy. And murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The insectoid Crix delegate clicked its mandibles in approval, while the aquatic nautolins released bubbles of concurrence through their environmental suits. Elena rose from her seat, her voice cutting through the growing chorus of condemnation. Honored council members, humanity has worked within the framework of galactic law. Our expansion has been to uninhabited systems. Our resource extraction has followed established protocols. We have contributed significantly to galactic trade and scientific advancement. The Vorthan representative, a massive reptilian creature whose scales shifted from green to angry purple, slammed a clawed fist on his console. Protocols you interpret to suit your needs. Your species breeds too quickly, expands too aggressively, and questions too much. You disturb the natural order that has kept peace for 10,000 years. Dr. Sarah Kim, humanity's chief xenobiologist, leaned forward in her seat. She had spent 20 years studying alien cultures, learning their languages, understanding their ways. Now she watched as that same knowledge revealed the truth behind their accusations. This wasn't about resources or expansion. This was about fear. The Council feared humanity's curiosity, their refusal to accept limitations, their tendency to find solutions where others saw only problems. In just 2 centuries since first contact, humans had developed faster than light communication that surpassed anything the older species possessed. They had created new alloys, solved energy crises, and worst of all, from the Council's perspective, they had begun asking uncomfortable questions about why certain technologies were restricted and why exploration beyond the galactic rim was forbidden. Kethvar activated another hologram, this one showing human research stations near the galactic edge. They probe forbidden zones, seeking what should remain hidden. Their scientists claim ignorance, but we know better. They seek the predecessor ruins, despite explicit warnings against such actions. The chamber fell silent. The predecessors were a taboo subject, an ancient mystery that the Council had sealed away eons ago. Elena felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the true scope of the charges against her species. The evidence is clear, continued the Zephyrian ambassador. Humanity cannot be trusted with the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. They are too young, too reckless, too dangerous to remain among civilized species. Council Chairman Vex Thule, an ancient being whose species had helped found the galactic government 12,000 years ago, raised his staff for silence. His voice carried the weight of millennia when he spoke. The motion before us is unprecedented in Council history. Never before have we considered the complete banishment of a species from Galactic Society. Elena stood again, desperation creeping into her voice. Chairman, if we have committed errors, let us address them through dialogue and compromise. Banishment serves no one. Humanity has much to offer the galaxy, and we have much yet to learn from our fellow species. But Elena could see the decision had already been made in private chambers and backroom deals. The Council's fear had crystallized into action, and no amount of pleading would change their minds. The vote proceeded with mechanical precision. 46 species voted in favor of banishment. Only humanity voted against. The final tally appeared in floating numerals above the chamber, sealing their fate. Chairman Vexthal's pronouncement echoed through the crystal halls. By the authority vested in this council by the Stellar Accords and the ancient laws that govern civilized space, humanity is hereby banished from galactic society. All trade agreements are terminated. All diplomatic relations are severed. All human presence must be withdrawn from council space within 1 standard year. The specifics of the banishment were brutally comprehensive. Humans would be barred from all established trade routes. Their ships would be turned away from any council-affiliated ports. Their research would be excluded from galactic databases. Most crushing of all, they would lose access to the quantum communication network that linked civilized worlds across the galaxy. As the council session concluded and delegates began filing out, Elena found herself surrounded by the remaining human representatives. General Chen's expression was grim but determined. "How many humans are scattered across council space?" he asked. "Approximately 40 million, replied Dr. Kim, consulting her datapad. "In colonies, research stations, trade posts, and mixed settlements. We have 1 year to evacuate them all." Elena felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. 40 million people who would have to abandon their homes, their work, their lives, because of a decision made by aliens who saw humanity as a threat to their comfortable stagnation. Over the following months, the evacuation became a massive undertaking that pushed human logistics to their limits. Transport ships worked around the clock, ferrying people and essential supplies back to human space. Some colonies had to abandon decades of terraforming work. Research stations lost irreplaceable data when they were forced to leave their equipment behind. But something unexpected happened during those months of retreat. As humans were forced to abandon their scattered outposts and return to their core worlds, they began to consolidate their knowledge and resources in ways they had never done before. Scientists who had been working in isolation across the galaxy suddenly found themselves collaborating directly. Military units that had been spread thin across dozens of systems could now coordinate their efforts. Dr. Kim established a massive research complex on humanity's capital world, bringing together experts who had spent decades studying alien technology and culture. General Chen began restructuring human military doctrine, focusing on self-reliance and independent operation. Elena herself worked tirelessly to maintain contact with the few alien individuals who still sympathized with humanity, building a network of information that would prove crucial in the years to come. The last human ship left council space 3 days before the deadline, carrying a small diplomatic mission that had been negotiating the final details of the withdrawal. As the vessel passed through the quantum barrier that marked the edge of council territory, its crew looked back at the vast expanse of stars that had once welcomed human exploration. Captain Maria Santos, commander of the diplomatic vessel, stood on her bridge watching the barrier shimmer behind them. "It's time to go home and decide what we do next." The journey back to human space took several weeks, giving the crew time to process what had happened and what it meant for their species' future. They had been cast out, labeled as dangerous and unwelcome, among the stars they had hoped to explore and understand. But in the cargo holds of their ship, along with personal belongings and essential supplies, they carried something the Council had not anticipated: 20 years of detailed observations of alien technology, comprehensive cultural studies, and most importantly, complete star charts of every system they had ever visited. When the ship finally reached Earth's solar system, Captain Santos was amazed by what she found. The scattered human colonies had been replaced by a unified network of worlds working with single-minded purpose. Massive construction projects were underway in asteroid belts and around gas giants. New cities were rising from previously uninhabited planets. Elena, now serving as Earth's coordinator for post-banishment affairs, met the arriving ship at Luna Station. "Welcome to the new reality," she told Captain Santos as they looked out at the bustling construction activity around them. "We've had a year to think about what the Council's decision really means." "And what does it mean?" Santos asked. Elena's smile was grim but determined. "It means we're free. For the first time since we joined Galactic Society, we're free to explore whatever we want, research whatever interests us, and build whatever we can imagine." The Council was afraid of human potential. Now they're going to discover exactly how right they were to be afraid. In the distance, massive shipyards were taking shape, designed to build vessels unlike anything humanity had constructed before. Research stations orbited every planet in the solar system, their scientists working on projects that would have been forbidden under Council oversight. And at the edge of the system, construction had begun on something that would have terrified the Council if they had known about it. Humanity was building a gateway to the galactic rim, where the forbidden predecessor ruins waited to reveal their secrets to anyone brave enough to seek them out. The Council had banished humanity to protect their comfortable order. But in doing so, they had unleashed something far more dangerous than they could possibly imagine. The age of human expansion was about to begin in earnest, and this time, there would be no Council oversight to hold them back. 50 years had passed since the banishment, and the galaxy was beginning to feel the consequences of the Council's decision. In the sprawling command center of New Geneva Station, Admiral Sarah Chen studied the holographic displays that showed the current state of human expansion. The granddaughter of the general who had witnessed humanity's exile, she had inherited both his strategic mind and his determination to prove the Council wrong. The numbers told an incredible story. What had once been 47 scattered human colonies had grown into 200 thriving worlds, connected by the most advanced infrastructure the galaxy had ever seen. Human space now encompassed a volume 3 times larger than it had been at the time of banishment, and every world within it was connected by instantaneous quantum communication networks that made the Council's aging systems look primitive. "Admiral, we're receiving another diplomatic request from the Alterian Collective," reported Commander Liu, her aide-de-camp. "They're offering exclusive trading rights in exchange for access to our quantum relay technology." Sarah smiled grimly. The Alterians had been among the most vocal supporters of human banishment. Now they were practically begging for the technology that human scientists had developed in isolation. "Standard response, Commander. All inquiries should be directed through official channels, which unfortunately remain closed due to their government's previous decisions." The irony was not lost on anyone in human leadership. The same species that had voted to banish humanity were now suffering from the consequences of that decision. Without human traders, entire sectors of the galactic economy had stagnated. Without human researchers contributing to the galactic database, scientific advancement had slowed to a crawl. Most critically, without human explorers pushing the boundaries of known space, the Council had lost its early warning system for external threats. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now in her 80s but still sharp as a laser, reviewed the latest intelligence reports in her private office. As humanity's chief xenological analyst, she had spent decades studying the political and economic developments within Council space. The picture that emerged was one of slow but steady decline. "The Council's technological stagnation is accelerating," she dictated to her AI assistant. "Without human innovation forcing them to adapt and improve, they've reverted to the comfortable complacency that characterized their civilization before first contact. Meanwhile, our isolation has driven us to achieve breakthrough after breakthrough." The breakthroughs had indeed been spectacular. Freed from Council restrictions, human scientists had developed faster than light travel that didn't require the quantum beacons that limited Council ships to established routes. They had created manufacturing processes that could transform raw asteroids into complete habitats in a matter of months. Most importantly, They had cracked the secrets of the predecessor ruins. The ruins had been humanity's greatest discovery and the source of their most significant advantages, located in the galactic rim region that the Council had declared forbidden. These ancient structures contained technology that predated galactic civilization by millions of years. The Council had known about them but had been too fearful to investigate thoroughly. Humans, with their characteristic curiosity and willingness to take risks, had established permanent research stations throughout the rim. Dr. James Park, the lead xenoarchaeologist on the predecessor project, had spent 30 years piecing together the fragments of a civilization so advanced that their basic tools surpassed the Council's greatest achievements. The predecessors weren't just technologically advanced, Park explained during a briefing to human leadership. They were explorers, builders, and above all, they were adaptive. Every ruin we've studied shows evidence of continuous innovation and improvement. They never stopped pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The predecessor technology had given humanity advantages that the Council couldn't have imagined. Energy sources that could power entire worlds, from devices no larger than a briefcase. Construction materials that could reshape themselves according to programmed patterns. Most remarkably, communication systems that operated outside normal space-time, making instantaneous contact possible across any distance. But the Council remained unaware of these developments. Human expansion had been deliberately conducted beyond Council sensor range, using routes that the older civilizations considered impossible or too dangerous to navigate. To the Council, humanity had simply vanished into the cosmic void, presumably struggling to survive without galactic support. The truth was revealed when the Krex hegemony attacked. The Krex came from outside the galaxy, a swarm of aggressive hive minds that had exhausted their home regions and were seeking new territories to consume. Their ships appeared simultaneously across dozens of Council border systems. Overwhelming defenses that had grown complacent during millennia of peace. In the Council chambers on Zentara Prime, emergency sessions convened daily as reports of devastating losses poured in from the frontier. The Krex technology was primitive by Council standards, but their numbers were overwhelming and their tactics ruthlessly effective. "We've lost 12 systems in the Outer Rim," reported Admiral Kethvar, now serving as military coordinator for the Zephyrian Empire. "Our fleets are retreating toward the core worlds, but the Krex are pursuing relentlessly." Chairman Vex Thule, his ancient form now supported by life extension technology, studied the tactical displays with growing alarm. "What of our allies? Have the Vorthans and Nautilans committed their reserve fleets?" "All available forces are already engaged," replied the Altarian representative, its crystalline form pulsing a deep purple of distress. "We estimate that at current rates of loss, we'll be forced to abandon the entire outer quarter of Council space within 6 months." The military situation deteriorated rapidly. Council fleets, designed for patrol duties and ceremonial displays, proved inadequate against an enemy that cared nothing for established rules of engagement. The Krex fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction, throwing themselves against Council defenses in waves that broke through barriers thought impregnable. As the crisis deepened, some Council members began to ask uncomfortable questions about their previous decisions. The Tyrellian delegate, representing one of the smaller species in the Alliance, voiced what many were thinking. "Perhaps it is time to reconsider our position regarding humanity," she suggested during a closed session. They possessed military capabilities that might prove valuable in our current situation. The suggestion was met with outrage from the older species. The Vorthans, Zephyrians, and Altarians had invested too much political capital in the banishment decision to admit it had been a mistake. "Humanity was dangerous," insisted Kethvar. "Their reckless expansion and disregard for established order made them a threat to galactic stability. The current crisis does not change that fundamental reality." 8. But even as the Council debated, the military situation continued to worsen. Krex forces had broken through the outer defensive lines and were advancing toward the core systems. Refugee fleets crowded the hyperspace routes, carrying billions of displaced civilians toward what they hoped would be safety in the galactic interior. The breakthrough came when a Council patrol ship, fleeing Krex pursuit near the Rigel sector, encountered something impossible. A human vessel appeared from nowhere, destroyed the pursuing Krex squadron with weapons of unprecedented power, and vanished again, before the Council crew could react. The report caused chaos in the Council chambers. According to their intelligence, humanity should have been struggling to survive on the galactic rim, possibly extinct after 50 years of isolation. The idea that they not only still existed but possessed advanced military technology was almost incomprehensible. Admiral Kethvar demanded a full investigation. "This changes nothing," he insisted. "Even if humans have survived, they remain outcasts. We cannot allow desperation to override decades of careful policy." But the investigation revealed disturbing truths about humanity's development during their exile. Long-range sensors detected massive construction projects in previously empty systems. Quantum signature analysis suggested the existence of communication networks spanning thousands of light-years. Most alarming of all, scout ships reported evidence of human settlements in regions of space that Council science considered uninhabitable. Dr. Velthar, the Council's chief scientific advisor, presented his findings with obvious reluctance. The evidence suggests that humanity has not merely survived their banishment, but has thrived beyond our most pessimistic projections. Their technological development appears to have accelerated rather than stagnated during their isolation. The implications were staggering. If humans had indeed developed superior technology while isolated from galactic civilization, it meant the Council had not only lost valuable allies, but had potentially created a rival power that operated completely outside their influence. As the Krex continued their advance and Council casualties mounted, even the most stubborn opponents of human contact began to waver. The possibility that humanity might possess the key to defeating the invasion became impossible to ignore. The decisive moment came when Zentara Prime itself came under attack. Krex forces, having swept aside the outer defenses, launched a direct assault on the Council capital. As evacuation ships fled the crystalline city and government officials prepared to relocate to backup facilities, a message was transmitted on emergency frequencies. To the Galactic Council, the transmission began, delivered in perfect galactic standard by a human voice many recognized as Elena Vasquez. "We are aware of your current difficulties with the Krex incursion. Despite our past differences, humanity is prepared to offer assistance in accordance with our shared interest in galactic stability." The offer was accompanied by a demonstration that left Council observers speechless. Human ships appeared around Zentara Prime as if materializing from empty space, their sleek forms bearing no resemblance to the crude vessels the Council remembered from decades past. They engaged the Krex attackers with weapons that turned the massive alien ships into expanding clouds of plasma, clearing the immediate threat in a matter of minutes. As quickly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished again, leaving only the transmission behind. The message continued with terms for potential cooperation. Terms that made clear humanity was no longer the junior species, seeking acceptance, that they had been 50 years ago. "Any future cooperation will be between equals," Elena's message concluded. "The era of human subjugation to Council authority has ended permanently. If you wish to discuss mutual assistance against the Krex threat, you may contact us through the quantum relay frequencies attached to this transmission." In the aftermath of the rescue, the Council chambers fell silent as the full implications of what they had witnessed sank in. Humanity had not only survived their banishment, but had emerged as a power that could casually accomplish feats the Council considered impossible. The species that had been cast out as dangerous and uncontrollable had become exactly what the Council had feared: an independent force with capabilities that surpassed their own. The question now was whether pride would prevent them from accepting the help they desperately needed, or whether the Krex threat would force them to swallow their arrogance and acknowledge the new reality. Outside the crystal halls of government, Zentara Prime citizens looked up at the stars and wondered what other surprises humanity had prepared during their half-century of exile. The galaxy had changed, and the comfortable order the Council had fought to preserve was crumbling around them. The negotiations took place aboard the human vessel Time's Perseverance Asterisk, a massive ship that served as humanity's mobile diplomatic platform. Admiral Sarah Chen had chosen the location deliberately, forcing council representatives to come to human space and experience firsthand the technological marvels they had dismissed as impossible. The council delegation that arrived was substantially different from the one that had voted for banishment 50 years earlier. Several species had suffered catastrophic losses to the Krex and were represented by emergency governments. Others had been forced to abandon their homeworlds entirely and now existed as refugee populations scattered across the remaining council territory. Ambassador Kethvar, now ancient even by Zephyrian standards, led the council delegation with obvious reluctance. Beside him sat the new Altarian representative, a young crystalline being whose predecessor had died defending the Altarian core worlds. The delegation was completed by representatives from a dozen other species, each bearing the weight of desperate circumstances. Elena Vasquez, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer despite her advanced age, welcomed the delegation to the conference chamber. The room itself was a demonstration of human advancement, with walls that displayed real-time images from across human space and furniture that adjusted automatically to accommodate the various alien physiologies. "Welcome aboard the Times, Perseverance *", Elena began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed humanity's transformation from exiled refugees to galactic power. "I trust your journey here was educational." The journey had indeed been educational. The council ships had been escorted through human space by vessels that could casually outpace anything in the council fleet. They had passed construction projects that dwarfed the largest council installations and seen worlds that had been terraformed using techniques that made council environmental engineering look primitive. Kethvar's translator rendered his opening statement with obvious strain. "We come seeking assistance against a mutual threat. The Krex advance continues, and our projections suggest complete collapse of council space within 18 months if current trends continue." Elena nodded gravely. "Our intelligence confirms your assessment. However, before we discuss any joint action, there are fundamental issues that must be addressed. The Council's decision 50 years ago was based on fear of human potential. That potential has now been fully realized." Admiral Chen activated a holographic display that showed the current state of human civilization. The numbers were staggering. Human space now encompassed over 800 worlds, connected by quantum networks that operated in real time across thousands of light years. The human population had grown to nearly 50 billion, supported by technology that had eliminated scarcity as a limiting factor. "This is what you feared," Chen said simply. "This is what you tried to prevent by casting us out. We have become everything you worried we might become, and we did it without your guidance or permission." The Altarian representative pulsed a deep blue of confusion. "How is such expansion possible? Our models suggested that without council support, human civilization would stagnate or collapse." Dr. Park, humanity's leading expert on predecessor technology, stepped forward to explain. "Your models were based on the assumption that council limitations represented the boundaries of what was possible. When we were forced to operate outside those limitations, we discovered that the universe contains far greater possibilities than your civilization ever imagined." The revelation about the predecessor ruins sent shockwaves through the council delegation. For millennia, they had treated the galactic rim as forbidden territory, convinced that the ancient artifacts were either too dangerous or too incomprehensible to study. Humans had not only studied them but had successfully integrated predecessor technology into their civilization. "The predecessors," Park continued, "were explorers and builders on a scale that makes current galactic civilization look provincial. They understood that stagnation leads to extinction, that comfort breeds vulnerability. They built their technology to enhance adaptation and growth, not to maintain static order." Elena took control of the presentation, displaying images of human cities that seemed to grow and reshape themselves according to need, of ships that could traverse impossible distances, of energy systems that tapped directly into the quantum substrate of reality itself. "This is our answer to your 50-year-old question," she said. "You asked whether humanity could be trusted with galactic citizenship. We no longer seek citizenship in your declining empire. We offer partnership between equals or we offer nothing at all. The terms Elena outlined were stark and non-negotiable. Humanity would assist against the Krek's threat, but only as an independent power, acting in its own interests. There would be no return to the old relationship where humans sought council approval for their actions. The banishment had severed those bonds permanently. You will acknowledge human sovereignty over our current territory, Elena continued. You will open formal diplomatic relations with humanity as an equal galactic power. You will provide full access to council databases and strategic intelligence regarding the Krek's threat. In return, we will deploy our military assets to defend council space and work toward the complete elimination of the Krek's invasion. Kethvar's forearms gestured in obvious agitation. These terms amount to a complete restructuring of galactic order. The Council has maintained peace and stability for 12,000 years. The Council maintained stagnation for 12,000 years, Elena corrected. Peace built on fear of change. Stability purchased through the suppression of innovation. That order is dying, Ambassador. The Kreks are simply the symptom of a deeper problem. The galaxy needs growth, adaptation, and the willingness to face unknown challenges. Admiral Chen provided the military details that made the political reality clear. Human forces now included fleets that could appear anywhere in the galaxy within hours, weapons that could sterilize entire star systems, and defensive systems that made human space essentially impregnable. The Council's military capabilities, impressive as they seemed within their own context, were simply inadequate for the scale of modern warfare. We could defeat the Kreks without Council assistance, Chen stated matter-of-factly. Our analysis suggests that human forces alone could eliminate the invasion within 6 months. However, we prefer to work cooperatively where possible. The galaxy is large enough for multiple civilizations to thrive. The negotiations continued for weeks, as Council representatives struggled to accept the new reality. Some, like the Tyrellian delegate, embraced the opportunity to learn from human advancement. Others, particularly the older species that had dominated the Council for millennia, found the prospect of equality with their former subjects almost unbearable. The breakthrough came when the Kreks launched another major offensive, this time targeting the Vorthan homeworld. The massive reptilian species that had been among humanity's most vocal critics found their planet under siege by Kreks forces that outnumbered their defenders 10-1. The rescue operation demonstrated human capabilities in ways that no amount of negotiation could have achieved. Human ships arrived at the Vorthan system before the Council's own reinforcements, having traversed distances that should have taken weeks in a matter of hours. The Kreks fleet, numbering in the thousands, was systematically destroyed by fewer than 50 human vessels. But it was the aftermath that truly impressed the Council delegation. Rather than simply driving off the attackers, human forces deployed reconstruction equipment that began repairing battle damage within minutes of the fighting's end. Medical ships provided advanced treatment for Vorthan casualties using technology that could heal injuries the Council considered fatal. Most remarkably, human engineers began upgrading Vorthan defensive systems with improvements that made their planet effectively immune to future Kreks attacks. The Vorthan representative, previously one of humanity's most bitter opponents, formally apologized for his species' role in the banishment decision. We were wrong, he admitted to the assembled delegation. We let fear overcome wisdom, and the galaxy has paid the price for our mistake. With Vorthan's support secured, the remaining Council opposition crumbled. One by one, the various species acknowledged human sovereignty and agreed to the terms of the alliance. The formal signing ceremony took place in the same crystal halls where humanity had been banished, but the balance of power had shifted completely. Elena signed the documents with a smile that carried 50 years of vindication. This agreement recognizes what has always been true, she said. Diversity of thought and approach makes civilization stronger. Suppressing that diversity, in the name of stability, ultimately weakens everyone. The joint campaign against the Kreks became a demonstration of what human council cooperation could achieve. Human technology provided the tools needed to track and eliminate Krek's infiltration forces that had been operating undetected for months. Council knowledge of galactic geography and local conditions allowed human forces to coordinate their efforts effectively. Together, they drove the Kreks back beyond the galactic rim and established monitoring systems that would prevent future invasions. But the real transformation was cultural rather than military. Exposure to human innovation sparked a renaissance of creativity and exploration within Council species that had been dormant for millennia. Young Altarians began experimenting with quantum manipulation techniques that their elders had considered impossible. Zephyrian engineers started designing ships that could navigate previously unexplored regions of space. Even the conservative Vorthans established research programs aimed at adapting human biotechnology to their own physiology. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now over 90 but still sharp as ever, stood once again in the council chambers, where her species had been condemned decades earlier. This time, she was delivering humanity's annual report on galactic exploration and development. The past 5 years have seen unprecedented cooperation and growth, she reported. 17 new habitable worlds have been discovered and settled jointly by human and council teams. Trade between our civilizations has increased by 4,000%. Most importantly, we have begun to push the boundaries of galactic exploration together, mapping regions that neither of our civilizations could have explored alone. The statistics told the story of a galaxy reborn. Population growth had resumed among council species for the first time in millennia. Scientific advancement was accelerating as human and alien researchers shared knowledge and techniques. New technologies were emerging from the combination of human innovation and alien expertise. Admiral Chen, now in her 70s and serving as Supreme Commander of Allied Forces, provided the military assessment. The galaxy is more secure today than it has been in recorded history. Our joint defense initiatives have eliminated the threat of external invasion, and our exploration fleets have established contact with 3 new civilizations beyond the galactic rim. The new civilizations had been approached carefully, with full human council diplomatic teams working together to establish peaceful contact. The lessons learned from humanity's banishment had not been forgotten. The galaxy now had protocols for integrating new species that emphasized cooperation and mutual benefit rather than subordination to existing power structures. But perhaps the most significant change was philosophical. The Council had abandoned its policy of controlled stagnation in favor of managed growth. Exploration was no longer forbidden but actively encouraged. Innovation was celebrated rather than feared. The galaxy had rediscovered the joy of discovery and the excitement of pushing boundaries. Elena concluded her report with a reflection on the journey that had brought them to this point. 50 years ago, you banished humanity out of fear that we would disrupt galactic order. You were right. We have disrupted that order completely. We have replaced a system based on fear and control with one based on cooperation and growth. We have transformed a galaxy of isolated species maintaining careful distance from each other into a community of civilizations working together toward common goals. She paused, looking around the chamber where representatives from over 100 species now gathered regularly to coordinate their joint efforts. You feared human potential, and that fear drove you to try to contain us. Instead, you freed us to realize that potential fully. Today, we offer that same freedom to every species in this galaxy. The age of artificial limitations is over. The age of unlimited possibility has begun. As the session concluded and representatives began filing out to return to their worlds, many reflected on the irony of the situation. The Council's attempt to preserve their comfortable order had ultimately led to its complete transformation. The species they had banished as too dangerous to tolerate had become the catalyst for the greatest period of growth and prosperity in galactic history. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, filled with the ships of dozens of species working together to explore, build, and discover. The galaxy that had once been divided by fear and suspicion had become united by shared purpose and unlimited ambition. Humanity had indeed been everything the Council feared. But in trying to contain that potential, They had only delayed its inevitable expression. Now, working together rather than in opposition, both human and alien civilizations had achieved heights that neither could have reached alone. The banishment had ended not with humanity's return to Council space, but with the Council's transformation into something worthy of human partnership. The galaxy had learned that growth required risk, that progress demanded courage, and that the greatest dangers came not from change, but from the refusal to change. The empire the stars had come to fear was not built on conquest or domination, but on the simple human refusal to accept limitations as permanent. That refusal, now shared by their former enemies, had become the foundation of a galactic civilization that reached ever outward toward new horizons and endless possibilities.